Perhaps the most memorable encounter I've had with anyone.
Welcome to the Own Your Commerce podcast, where leading experts, brands, and innovators reveal strategies for e-commerce growth. I'm your host, Jay Myers, and this show is brought to you by Bold Commerce. Hey everyone, I am so excited today to have John Roman here with me. He's the CEO of BattlBox, which is honestly one of the most loved subscription brands ever. They recently were acquired, which we're going to talk a little bit about. It's not just BattlBox though; it's Carnivore Club, and they've got a few other brands in there. They've launched a series on Netflix, which we'll dive into a little bit. He's really had an amazing journey. He's also honestly one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. I just got to know him recently. One of those people that really just likes to help others and share information. And well, that's really why I was excited to get him on our show. John, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Jay. I'm excited to be here.
So speaking of your Netflix series, I actually, I didn't know that you had it recently. And I was doing a little bit of Googling the other day, and I just started watching it. It's awesome. Like I just watched episode 2 with the glass breaking tools. And it's funny because the tool, okay, so the series is called Southern Survival. Definitely everyone listening should check it out. It's kind of a blend between it's like Mythbusters with a little bit of a Duck Dynasty flair to it.
I think that's literally how I describe it to people. It's Mythbusters.
Oh, okay. Okay, I wasn't sure if you'd be offended if I it's like awesome. I love it. And maybe that's why I like it so much. I don't know. But that glass piece, so for breaking the car glass, the little hammer, and the one that broke when they were trying it on the window and fell apart, and they're like, this is crap. I have one of those in my truck. So I'm going to throw that out right away. And maybe I should find whatever BattlBox is that one's in.
Shoot me your address and I'll send you one of them.
Okay. Cause the one I have is the garbage one. I'll tell you that right now.
Man, it was a little bit of a process. So Brandon Curran, who he's the face of our brand. He's the one in all the videos. So he came on board about a month after we started. I apologize, about a year after we started. And then let me backtrack and do some math. Okay, so the show aired in 2020, which meant we shot it in 2019. Okay, so in late 2017, the High Noon Entertainment production house, Cake Boss and Fixer Upper.
Yeah.
The two feathers in their caps of shows they've done. They reached out, wanted to jump on a call, talk through the concept, the idea. They saw Brandon's videos and they were just like us, a big fan of Brandon. So they wanted to figure out if there was anything there for a show. So we jump on with them. They had kind of received a green light to shoot some sizzle reels, which I guess is the thing that comes before a pilot. So Netflix has kind of changed the game with full seasons and really changed the way all that behave. Back years ago, you used to see a pilot on TV, and sometimes that's all you saw because they hadn't shot the rest. So the concept was we want to shoot the sizzle reel and get money to shoot a pilot. And the conversations they were having were with History Channel at the time. So they came, they shot a sizzle reel. I was actually in the sizzle reel. I ended up not being in the show for a bunch of reasons, but did the sizzle
Acting's
reel.
Not your gig.
Just not my thing. Their concept of my character was possibly going to cause internal issues, which weren't a good idea.
Not worth it.
So they shot that and then put it in the hands of History Channel, and History Channel sat on it for like 6-7 months and finally just said no. And so we were a little like, we were so excited about it and kind of let down at that moment. But High Noon was like, look, we're going to talk to other people. We really like this. We think this has legs on it. So they start talking to Discovery Channel, and we're excited again. And Discovery Channel's reviewing it, and they sit on it for 6-7 months, and
Hmm.
they say no. So at this point, we're at the end of 2018, going into 2019, and we touched base with High Noon. So it's been over a year at this point. Uh, and they're like, hey, we're going to set up some meetings this month. We're going to meet with Walmart for Walmart streaming service, which I'm not sure if they're even doing it anymore. I know they were trying. I can't remember the name of it, if it does exist. But they were going
Yeah,
to
I
meet with,
remember that too. I don't think they are.
yeah, they might have just folded. I'm not sure, honestly. If it's still around, I feel bad because clearly they're failing at it. Um, but so they're going to meet with Walmart, and they're going to meet with Netflix. And, they're going to pitch both of them, and we're excited again. From what I understand, the meeting with Walmart went well. Then they meet with Netflix, and they basically leave the Netflix meeting, and it's a green light. Netflix, and Netflix doesn't play the here's some money for a pilot. They said, okay, we'll do a season. We want the rights to 7 seasons, and let's go. Um, and we're like, wow, okay. And then honestly, within a few weeks, we had a giant contract, like 60, 70 pages from them, that was the agreement. We were like, oh, I guess we have to find like an entertainment lawyer at this point. So we found an entertainment lawyer that came recommended here in Atlanta, and we took it to them. They redlined it. We had more calls. We redlined more stuff, and we sent it over to Netflix, all proud that we got this, through this document. And they replied and said, "Oh, well, sorry for any misunderstanding or improperly set expectations. There is no redlining process. This is the agreement." Said,
Wow.
"Oh, okay." Um,
What were some of the things that you didn't feel comfortable with? Like this is a
um,
standard agreement they send to every
yeah. So
anyone
it's
producing
it's
content?
yeah, it's really geared towards the parts that we weren't super comfortable with were the fact that we were just clearly viewed as talent. And at the end
Hmm.
of the day, we are a business, and we are a business first. Even we might lead with content as a company, but at the end of the day, we're a business. And it was just very, very talent driven. We're if we have an event for marketing that you need to come to, we'll give you 48-hour notice um, to figure it out. And at the end of the day, we have mission critical things in the business that have to take precedent over anything else. So it was
Yeah.
just a little bit of a not super comfortable only being treated as talent. And to foreshadow some, they wouldn't ever even talk to me because I wasn't on the show.
Hmm.
So Daniel, my old business partner that found came up with the idea. uh he he would literally like forward, or they'd send an email saying, hey, let's meet Tuesday at 4, and he'd reply back to it and like copy me in and copy Patrick, or other partner, and be like, looping in the guys, and they'd reply back and remove us. um
Hmm.
it was just
Wow.
it was just
Interesting.
we were always just treated, we were talent, and that's
Yeah. Yeah.
because they're so large. Like
What?
the people that would understand, that we're a business as well, just weren't a part of the conversation. So uh signed it. They came, we filmed. uh Second half of 2019 was filming. They came back in January of 2020 to get some additional shots, just to close up some continuity for the episodes. Then radio silence. We know nothing at all. February, March, April, hear nothing. And then at the end of April, Netflix reached out and said, "Hey, we're going to release this July 4th weekend, and it's called Southern Survival, and um, you can't talk about it. We're going to give you some information 2 weeks out that you can start promoting it. A bunch of a bunch of teaser videos
Hmm.
and teaser creatives." So we're like, okay. Um, and then we're mid pandemic, so we're super
Yeah.
excited. This is great timing for outdoor and survival gear. This is perfect. And then the reality of um the George Floyd situation incident
Right.
happened.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, even though we were in a pandemic, there was protests, and all of a sudden the title Southern Survival, while completely innocent, is
Yeah.
maybe not the right, extremely uh very patriotic show. So then we went through
Mm.
this phase of like, well, what do we do? And at this point, we had been given the green light of Southern Survival, so we're manufacturing Southern Survival gear. We're going all in with our cash and our profit, and just rolling it in to be ready for this. And
Yeah.
not being able to forecast too intelligently, because nobody's ever had a yes. There's been Duck Dynasties and shows like that that were episodic, an episode a week, a slow build, um, not this whole full season. You can watch it all right away. So a company with a show at a full where it all drops at once, like there's no use case or case study on what type of uplift to expect, how much
Hmm.
product we should order, what's going to be the
Yeah.
conversion rate on
Well,
traffic. We're making educated guesses. Um, and so we had manufactured all this stuff at this point that has Southern Survival written on it. So we're just in a bad spot. Like, what do we do? Like, if we have to change the name, obviously we'll change the name. It's not even our choice, but like, what do we do about all this
so,
product?
yeah.
Netflix, you gonna
It's
buy it from us? And
well,
yeah,
how does the mechanics of that work? Sorry, this might be like a silly question, but Netflix acquires content. It's a like it's a product.
right.
They buy the rights to the content.
Yep.
You produced it, or did Netflix produce it?
Um, so High Noon Entertainment produced it.
The high new. Okay, so now they have the rights to it for, you said, 7 years.
Yeah, correct.
But do you have creative control for
No.
like the next seasons and products, or is it like they control the general theme? You've control
Yeah,
of the products that are tested and
yeah. So yeah, they for Southern Survival, they have they're just the decision maker. They're the authority. We
okay.
are not, and we don't have rights. So if they wanted to make a bunch of um, shirts with like photos from the show or something like that, like that's them.
Interesting.
Anything we have to do, we would have to get approval. So like us running videos from parts of the show, like we had to go and send that over to them, to Netflix, for approval. It's very much theirs, and we're
Hmm.
just talent at the end of the day.
But do you control the products that are tested on the show?
Yeah, so they leaned on us for what should the products be, right?
Yeah.
um and then they would build around that. They had some ideas. It is TV, so some of the items, like the glassbreaker stuff, 100%, but like some of the items are items that would never make their way in a battle box, for typically for price reasons, right? We're also not
Yeah.
actually flipping trucks.
Right.
Some stuff that's made for TV.
the lines are getting like, as I was watching it, and there's other shows too, but it's kind of still early. But this, like the blurring between e-commerce and media. Um, you know, as I'm watching it, I'm thinking like, how long is it going to be until Netflix, allows purchasing within their player to some capacity, and maybe that's a channel, just like Google Shopping or Facebook Shopping. Maybe it's Netflix Shopping, maybe, and then that's part of the rights that you have the rights to be the only supplier, or it becomes a bidding process. Like, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's the future. And you're right. The blurring is just it's happening, and it's really it's kind of cool to see. It's so when like one of my hot buttons and things that you always ask, like, well, what are you losing sleep over? What can't you stop thinking about? It's it's this, I pride that we really truly BattlBox leads with these two pillars, right? And it's content and community. And
Mm-hmm.
the content is exactly what it sounds like. We're at this point doing 2 TikToks a day, a Reels, a YouTube
Mm.
Shorts, um, obviously all the usual suspects like Facebook and Instagram with traditional posts. But we're content, a few long forms a month that typically just go to YouTube, Facebook too. But content, and then with that though comes the community piece. And for community for us, it's really two parts. There's the customer community, which we have the members only group, which I was in there on Friday, like interacting and talking and asking what all of our customers were doing this next week or the weekend. So there's that part, but then there's just this other community we've built on TikTok where it's you see a lot of the same people just commenting and asking questions, and the whole ecosystem of community is so important, and it's paramount, and it's the reason we're successful. But we were a business first, right? And
Yeah.
then what you're seeing now with the Nelk Boys and Mr. Beast, they built the content and community, and now they're building the businesses,
Yeah.
which is kind of crazy. I mean, Mr. Beast launches a chocolate bar, and because of his content and the community he's built, he's all of a sudden nationwide in Walmart immediately,
Yeah.
right? Like something that a traditional merchant would dream of and would have to go through all of these hoops. And you look at Nelk Boys with their Full Send podcast, and now they've built this community, and somehow they've launched Happy Dad, which is um the I guess not White Claw, but whatever they're called, the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
alcoholic spiked soda water.
Spritzer. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think. But it's really really cool that they're doing it, and they're doing it the reverse way that we did. But I think they're
Mm-hmm.
doing the reverse way for the same reason that you just stated. Like e-commerce and media and commerce in general are all just blending together. And yeah, I'm shocked Netflix hasn't launched some sort of shopping, right? You look at YouTube announced we're in their we had this YouTube Shopify integration where we can go on YouTube Live now and do live shopping. And then
Like,
you see,
like
go ahead.
you're not you're not giving Netflix. There's no royalties you owe them for anyone that purchases one of those glass breakers from your
No,
store. That's your
no,
own. That's your
yeah.
own
So
business.
our product, right? And a lot
Yeah.
of this stuff, we're not even the we didn't make it, right? It's not our product.
Right.
It's a vendor that we chose because we thought it was quality. So no, so there's nothing like that, thank goodness. But
Well, you,
it's
you
just
think
for me.
especially like, yeah, well, and especially like in a platform that has no commercials, and you think, Netflix is, I don't know, last couple quarters, like their subscribers have been slightly down, and they're looking for ways to tighten the belt a little bit without introducing commercials. Like that they're on platforms, like technology is now exists for I think a lot about Amazon Prime. Like they seem even perfectly fit for it because they're built on top of the world's largest e-commerce
Yeah.
marketplace. So to have, like, when you pause a show on Amazon Prime and you can see all the actors and everyone in that scene, to see the product in that scene and then just go, use one click buy. Like if you're logged
Yeah.
in, you're logged into your Amazon account, your Amazon, it
You know,
has your credit card and address.
Jay, I hadn't thought about that, but like they're the ones that are they already have it. They just have to connect it.
Totally.
Like they already have the
It'll
perfect platform.
it'll happen. Well, we'll look back at this podcast in a few years and we'll say, "Hey, John, remember when we were talking about?" Oh, yeah, we were ahead of our time.
So
No, it's going to happen for sure.
Started doing live shopping now.
Yeah.
So,
Which
I mean,
I've heard has mixed results, but it's early, right? So it's gonna get perfected. It's gonna get better, but it's just the way video converts. Like there's all the data points, and whenever you introduce video into that sales funnel and that customer journey, it just the effects it has on conversion is drastic.
yeah, it's interesting live shopping in general that everybody is, and we're obviously still in its infancy here in North America, but everybody that's very, very bull on live shopping references how big it is in China, right? It's
Yes.
this
Yeah.
huge subsect of ecom there. And I don't know if it's not catching on at the speed that the experts thought it would. And maybe it won't, because you're seeing, like, your example of Amazon. The initial response hasn't been great. You look at us as an example with YouTube. We had our call with our Shopify rep, and they said, hey, the announcement of this integration, you're on a short list of accounts that have already been pre-approved to go and start. And this was 60 days ago, and we had an internal call, and we said, okay, well, let's watch a couple of these other brands go first, and let's pick up some learnings from them. And that way, when we go, we're a step ahead. And we're 60 days in, and we haven't seen any. No one's doing it yet.
Interesting.
So there's definitely some adoption issues in North
Yeah.
America with it, and I don't know if maybe that's just part of it, and eventually it'll catch fire, or if it'll just, maybe it's definitely going to be a part of our future live shopping, but it might just end up not being as big as it is in China.
Yeah, I think well, it's like anything, when something gets rolled out, different markets are different too. Like if we don't use social media the same way and that they do in China, and so you're building on top of a infrastructure that is different. It's inherently different. And I don't know the exact stat, but it's something like 90% of media is consumed on phones in China. It's not yet that way in America, but like it's getting there. So maybe we're just a little bit behind. I don't know. I'd like to go back actually to the community conversation a little bit, because I heard a quote recently that someone said, in the future, all the successful e-commerce brands will be content creators and community builders. Those will be the successful e-commerce brands. It's not about, like, when the barrier to entry becomes so low, and you're on Shopify, you can have a store up and running from breakfast till dinner, and be selling. Like it's that easy. You don't need getting a payment gateway set up. I started selling online in 1998. I remember having to sign to get a merchant account just to be able to charge a credit card. I had to guarantee my personal, all my net worth. It was a 60-day process to be able to charge a credit card. Anyways, I could go on about all these challenges, but Shopify's done a good job of removing the barrier to entry. So when that barrier to entry becomes zero, which is a good thing, there's still going to be winners and there's still going to be losers. Just because the barrier of entry is so low doesn't mean they're not all going to be successful. So the ones that now are and this I think comes to the community aspect and the content. What are some things you've learned getting community and content right? Like I'm sure you've blundered and made some mistakes and found out some things that work. Then maybe let's hone in on the community piece. What have you got right around community?
So the interaction, the engagement, we've always made it a priority, whether it was on ads or posts. We always engaged and interacted. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things we did, and it's had iterations. We launched in a short order battleboxforum.com, and we pushed it to our customers. We pushed it in. We weren't doing content like we do now, but any sort of content we did, we reminded people of it. It was in the little card that was in the box, and it wasn't you didn't have to be a BattlBox customer to join it. It was just connecting, like-minded people that like to go outdoors, or wanted survival gear or camping gear. And we built that and pushed it, and it was agnostic. It didn't matter if you were a BattlBox customer or not. And we it was very Reddit style, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it was just we built it in conjunction with BattlBox, not as a BattlBox piece. And that was the focus, and then that organically grew. And I think when you're building community, you have to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not serving just some agenda. And I think if you genuinely build it in that view, you're setting yourself up for the best chance of success. Like you don't make a Facebook group for your company so you can make a post every day about why everybody should sign up for your service.
Yeah.
Like give them something that's actually valuable, that's has nothing to do with your product. You can't
Yeah.
make it about your product. And then that's why the Mr. Beast and the Nelk Boys, for example, why they're having success, right? They built the community first.
Before there was even a product.
Yeah. um
Yeah.
other learnings is, you have to be um really almost bleeding edge, following what's working with content, right? So
Mm.
um you saw TikTok, and so we joined. we were I thought we were late to the game with TikTok, so we started, I guess, February of 2021. Like, we had the account, but we weren't really doing anything with it. And
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
started pushing hard in February 2021. And I mean, it was lots of learnings, lots of failures. I have a blog that I do a really poor job of writing often on, but when I do, right, I wrote a couple kind of updates through the journey, and we were having some small successes, but they weren't too noteworthy, and it was a lot of learnings and a lot of failures. So I love that I at least like wrote about it as we were going through it. But it took us a solid year before TikTok really popped. And we were really quick to, like, listen to the street, listen to what everyone was saying, what was working for other people. And we quickly found out that uh, Meta and Google were a little nervous about TikTok, and TikTok was
Mm-hmm.
kind of, they were afraid they were going to steal their lunch, and all of a sudden Meta and Google made changes to their algorithm where Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, their version of TikTok, were
Yeah.
that type of content was treated as if it was golden, way better than um, a picture on
Yeah.
Instagram, or a actual long form traditional horizontally shot video. And as soon as we heard that and saw that, well, we had been pushing content vertically uh, on TikTok for a year, so we had a lot of content,
Mm.
and we just started, dumping it, not with the TikTok logo. It was video that we had uploaded, that we had made and then
Yeah.
uploaded to TikTok, um, and just repurposing it for those channels. And when we did that, So YouTube, I think we were on a slow build of about maybe 4 to 5 thousand new subscribers on YouTube a year, and it was just a slow build. We
Hmm.
were up to 50. We had an initial pop. We were up to like 55K at the time, so it was just very slow. We're adding, 400 new subs a month, and we started dropping the vertical content because we had heard that was a thing, and we had all this content. We started dropping it. We got up to, we started doing that at the beginning of the year, and I think we just passed 500,000 subs this month. So
Amazing.
all of a sudden, while we were grabbing 4 or 5 thousand a year, we've
Yeah.
added 450,000 this year. So it's
So what's the main, what's the number one? Is TikTok the number one, or is now
so
YouTube past it?
so they battle. So at
Okay,
any given
interesting.
month, if we're looking at our post purchase survey, for example, on
Yeah.
how did you first hear about us, that's they battle back and forth. Right now, YouTube is YouTube's our number one source, and TikTok
Hmm.
is number two. But they'll you know we could put out a good piece of content on one of them before the other, and it could flip flop tomorrow. But
Interesting.
Facebook,
What's been
Facebook and Instagram are like, I think, fifth and sixth for us now, which is crazy because for years they were like a commanding one and two.
Yeah. Oh, it's yeah. It's. I mean, and I think you're smart. Like your approach of just try things when they come out. You don't know if they're gonna stick. They may or may not. But get in the game. Get some content out there and see if it works. And if it does, 10x down on it. If it doesn't, move on to the next. But I
A
think
hundred percent.
it's so. What would you say? Well, actually, I got a couple questions on the social media side of things. I guess one, um, I was curious about this. I help a lot of brands in different spaces, and I know in the space you're in, you've got outdoor supplies. There's knives. There's different things. Have you run into challenges with paid advertising on these platforms, and how have you navigated that?
Yeah. So, um, oh man, the it's been a nightmare. It's not anymore,
Hmm.
but it was a nightmare for years. So we started off, in 2015 with some Facebook ads, right? That's all we were running. We didn't know any better.
Yeah.
We were seeing success, and that's where we were going. You looked at any given time, and like 99% of our traffic was probably, analytics, UTM, Facebook. Um,
Wow.
and that's just, it was working. We didn't know any better. It was naivety. And we went into Labor Day of the first year, and we had this big sale. It was the biggest sale we had ever done before. We were so excited. It was Friday at 5 o'clock. We get an email that our account's been, not like an ad turned off, like our account had been canceled.
Hmm.
And we
Because
were like, what?
of
Because of so some of our boxes occasionally include a knife,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so that was the reason. And we got super lucky. We jumped on the BattlBox forum, and one of the members of this community we built worked in Facebook at
Oh,
the
no way.
yeah, listen to this. And his department area where he sat was like one room over from the
Oh,
compliance team.
jeez.
Dude,
You are
he
you,
literally went over there. Now, this didn't happen. We didn't talk to him, I think, until like Tuesday of the following week. And we were desperate, so we posted it in our group. He talked to them, and they had it on within hours after he spoke to him. We were good to go. But at that
wow.
point, we were like,
Because
okay,
good luck getting a hold of someone there otherwise. Like
yeah,
it's
it's insane. And we still spend a lot with them, but like we were spending a lot with them, and you would think you could have like a normal conversation. It's such a challenge.
no.
So
Yeah.
obviously at that moment, when we got back, we said, okay, clearly Facebook's important, but we need to diversify
Yeah.
ASAP. And we we know what we're doing, but there's people that know how to do it a lot better. So that was the first point. We brought on an advertising agency and said, okay, where else? What should we do? Help us. Um, and
In the
you
long
know,
run, it probably was a blessing in disguise, right? I'm assuming.
100%. We made some business rules after that. Like, yes, there's going to be ads that can scale, and that's great. But like in the short term, it's acceptable. But like long term, looking at periods of time, like we really don't want any lead source of ours to be greater than a 6, because
Yeah.
when it is, that it starts to become problematic,
Yeah.
and you're too dependent on that source. So we got back up and running. At the beginning of the next year, we got kicked off again, and we
Hmm.
didn't get back. We never we just didn't get back. Um,
So you're
for,
not doing paid ads on Facebook right now?
so we are. So BattlBox, the Facebook account, the Facebook page that has the blue check, that has all of our likes and follows, can't
Is
advertise
not
on
able
there.
to. It,
Yeah.
that's so funny.
So
I
yeah,
I know
it's
my brother has an archery target company. He sells archery targets, and it just like his account also was banned from Facebook because there was a bow. I mean, it's an Olympic sport, archery,
yeah,
but you can't have a bow in an ad. You can have the target in an ad, but not the bow. And so exactly the same thing. His Facebook account, like not his personal one, but the company's account, same thing. But he can still
right.
run ads through another Facebook account running ads for that site. It's I'm told it's usually a competitor reporting your ad, but I don't know for sure. But I've been told that
I,
that's generally
it would,
like
yeah, wouldn't surprise
face,
me at all.
Facebook doesn't go out of their way to ban people. It's they lose money when they do it. But if you get enough competitors reporting an ad saying this ad is
Offensive.
offensive or something like that, then they just maybe they don't have enough people to check every single one. If there's enough complaints, then they shut it down. So I don't know how true that is, but that's what I was told. It's just interesting.
So
I was
we
curious how you navigated that, because I've heard this come up for many brands who are in a completely legitimate space, but it's like what you're going through.
Yeah, so we ended up at that point creating secondary and tertiary
Yeah.
Facebook accounts. We actually got a hold, our agency at the time who we were using had a rep, and agencies are able to actually communicate pretty regularly with Facebook. They typically have an account manager that isn't a new hire that you're only going to have for 3 months. The
Yeah.
we So we spoke with them, and what we did is we built these secondary and tertiary pages. This was our second iteration. This is not where we're at today. But if the traffic, we put UTM parameters in all of our ads, and if the traffic was originating from Facebook or Instagram, we had logic on our site that completely scrubbed and made the experience as PG as possible. We changed words, we
Oh.
changed images. It was just it was a different experience if you originated from Facebook or Instagram. Now, if you went there afterwards directly, you saw the real site. So we ran this by Facebook, the Facebook account manager. They looked at it. They said everything was fine. We were good. We spun up ads. We were off to the races, and that lasted for about 9 months. And then out of the blue, all of those accounts got canceled. We
Huh.
got um yeah, we got terminated, and we were back to the drawing board. We were off no Facebook, Instagram for I think 3 months, and we at this point we built these headless microsites.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we made it where it was templatized. We could spin one up with a domain, a Facebook page, and an
Mm.
ad account. Everything we needed within a matter of I don't know, probably 30 minutes, dragging and dropping the imagery that we needed. So it was like almost like a web builder, and it built this headless
Yeah.
site that then connected, to Shopify for the back end for
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
cart.
Yeah.
Just And
Huh.
we did that, and off to the races again, good to go. We switched agencies, unrelated reason, and the new agency had a really good, and it's our current agency. They have a really good relationship with their Facebook rep. We jumped on a call because at the end of the day, we're still having to run this traffic to these microsites, which it works, but it's not ideal, right? We're not getting them to
Yeah.
our domain. Um,
Yeah.
when we were putting them on our domain, uh, trying to run ads to our domain, Facebook wouldn't even allow us to run ads on our domain. So we finally spoke to them and got them to remove whatever this red flag or thing they had put on our account. They had like almost blacklisted the domain. But we talked to them,
Jeez.
and this is like this is about a year ago, and they removed that. So now we can run ads to our domain again, which is great. Um, but I mean, for 5 years we couldn't run ads to our domain, which is it's tough. It's tough for growth when
Yeah.
it's such a hindrance.
Well, when I asked you that question, I didn't think this was going to be the the answer. I was expecting some, yeah, I mean, some challenges, but that's crazy.
Yeah. No,
Well,
no problem. No problems anywhere else. TikTok
yeah.
will, they'll kill because we also follow the rules to a T.
Yeah.
We're overly cautious with it. Um, we're in firm understanding of all platforms' terms and what they are, and we follow them. So the
Yeah.
other platforms are all different. Though, like occasionally an ad will get like caught up, and we just shoot them a note, and within a hour to a day, they've turned it back on, they've apologized, and we move on. But yeah, for
Yeah. That's
years
crazy. Well,
it was a problem.
so given all these challenges, what have been some other ways that you've growth, like, or that you've grown? Have you leveraged marketplaces or like influencer? Um, Maybe let's talk about
Yeah.
marketplaces. Have you done anything there, or what have been some other growth channels for you?
So one of the things in our initial strategy, and it's actually how we found Brandon, um, indirectly, is uh, we send. I think at this point we probably send about 50 a month. Back then we were probably sending 25 just off the jump boxes to YouTubers, influencers, anybody
Hmm.
that's putting out content.
Hmm.
So in a given month now, like our last BattlBox Mission 92 dropped. People started receiving it about 2 weeks ago, and then you know all of a sudden there's dozens of reviews on YouTube and dozens of reviews elsewhere. So
Yeah.
that was a big part of our strategy and continues to be is getting it out there. We invest a lot of time and resources in SEO. So we have multiple articles that are being published on our site. We're working with an SEO agency for articles about us, elsewhere on the interwebs. It's a constant it's a constant piece. But honestly, for the last few years, content and
Yeah.
and and putting out content that's organic and uh, isn't salesy for the most part,
Yeah.
but it does get them to our site, and then they do opt in for email, and at that point, we're going to be able to reprospect them, and we're going to then be able to send them offers. But a lot of a big chunk of our business is done through, I guess you would classify it as word of mouth, but it's via content.
You do sell also on Amazon? Am I correct or not?
We do. So
Is it?
so initially we were when we first started with them, we only were doing their Amazon subscription, Amazon Subscribe,
Yeah.
which and then we ended up doing more, and it's so we do FBA, and I think we have a decent amount of one time offerings there, but it's not a very large channel for us. It's
So are you, just out of curiosity, do you are you pushing it at all, or do you just feel that you need it there in case someone searches for BattlBox on Amazon?
Yeah, it's the latter. It's a defensive move.
Yeah.
I mean, don't it's a decent sized part of the business. I mean, annually, I don't know, maybe 450, 500,000, but to the big grand scheme of things, that's not much. And so
Yeah.
it's a very, very, very small part of the business. But yeah, you're right. It's more defensive, right? So
Defensive. Yeah.
yeah, like FBA, which if you're not FBA, FBM can still kind of get the buy box sometimes, but it's if you do FBA,
And
your storage fees are like 32, 33% coming off the top. It's tough.
yeah, it's interesting. I, just a few brands. So Liquid Death is one of the brands that we worked with for years, like, for subscriptions. And then I noticed one day on their site, you could still subscribe. They use Shopify as well. But I think a case, I don't know if you know, do you know Liquid Death?
Yeah.
Yeah. They've kind of become super, they only launched in 2019, but they just recently got an investment. They were valued at 700 million. It's basically, mineral water in a can that looks like a beer can, but their marketing is genius. But anyways, they were selling a case of water on subscription for $17.99 a case, and then they had a button underneath that said, or subscribe on Amazon for $14.99 a case, which, right, it might have been 15, but it was like $3 less than buying direct on their site, which I thought made no sense because they're also paying the Amazon 15% marketplace fee and whatever. Yeah. FBA fees and whatever else. But it was actually very deliberate, and their goal was to funnel all their traffic to Amazon and then become the number one mineral water. So purchased on Amazon now. So right now, actually, if you go on Amazon and you search mineral water, it's like they have
They're
position
down.
like 1, 2, 3, and 4. And
Wow.
now it's a snowball effect because they hold those positions. They just get more and more. But it was an investment, like sending them there and losing the $3 per case they saw as an investment to grab the land. And now they're holding the land. It's just interesting. I'm paying attention a lot. Like, you look at brands that start, there's a lot to be said for direct to consumer, but you used to see, um, it was the opposite. Brands would kind of try to go direct to consumer. Now we're seeing brands start direct to consumer, and then now it's how do they get into stores like Dude Wipes, Liquid IV, Hint Water. You look at all these other ones that are like fantastic D2C brands, but then their play is to end up getting into distribution channels. So I was
That's
curious if there was like a longer term strategy there, maybe with Amazon.
no, so 100%. Couple of thoughts. One, so I'm not sure if you're familiar with a brand called CrossNet.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, I know. Chris actually was on the podcast.
oh, okay, cool.
Chris
So
Mead, one of the founders.
yeah, yeah. So I was chatting with Chris, and he was telling me that they were at the time. I don't know if they're still doing this, but this was a few months back. They were running their Facebook ads to not their site, but to Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Probably for
and
similar reasons.
similar reasons, but also the Amazon's such a trusted source to consumers these days. He was saying the CAC was so substantially better running the ad to Amazon that it still made sense financially to pay the Amazon fees. That it was still a better deal at the end of the day to the bottom line because the conversion rate was so much better on Amazon versus their site, which was kind of mind blowing to me.
Interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's that too. I didn't even that, but the prime factor, right? It's the trust, which Shopify now is trying to kind of get in there as well too with
yeah,
the shop promise. And I
Shop
mean, it's
Pay.
the same shop pay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, they so,
It's interesting.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say it's an interesting strategy. Like I've always been, it's not like I've never kind of bought into the rhetoric like it's Amazon is evil and D2C is bad. I think they both have their place. They just need to be used the right way and not get used, because you also don't want all your eggs in the Amazon basket, because that can be just as dangerous too. But if used properly, and once you've built your brand and you have a defensible brand, then you can potentially leverage marketplaces.
100%. So back to answer your question though, it's funny you were talking about, starting on ecom and getting to retail. That's been one of our hot buttons and focuses is how do we
Mm,
crack retail? How do we get in retail? What retail is the right fit? So for us, because there's a perceived value around our brand, and we've seen some other brands in our space, the outdoor space, that are in Walmart. And then when we feature them in our box, our consumers are like, "Oh, it's just a cheap Walmart brand." So, we're a little cognizant of
mm,
being strategic with what retail makes sense. Is it a Academy Sports? Is it a Dick's or Cabela's? And thinking through that, and we're trying. It's a little bit of a process. I've been trying to pick the brains of people that have already been there and had success, going from D2C to
yeah.
retail, traditional
Yeah.
retail. Yeah, I think it's, you say, okay, how do we become $100 million company or a $200 million company? And for us to get to that next step, at this time, I think retail almost has to have a place in that journey to accomplish that, and get to the next stepping stool, if you will.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's tough. And there's different ways to, it's not necessarily the box, but it might, I mean, that was one of the questions I wanted to ask about, was like, what, like the brand BattlBox, um, your, I feel like your brand is ultimately more important than the contents in the box. And eventually, especially with, the show on Netflix and the community, and you're doing a lot of things like really right. And now when BattlBox maybe potentially launches certain products, or like you once you have that brand, then you have the power to maybe enter into retail. And I think I feel like I feel like you do, but that's just my observation. But it's an interesting challenge, because I do think that, as much as I love subscription boxes too, like, we've gone through the craze in, 7 years ago, when they kind of like boomed, and now they're doing fine. There's nothing wrong with subscription boxes, but it's not like when you launched subscription boxes. I know I heard your story. You said like there was just no other survival subscription box. There was
Yeah, yeah,
your co-founder saw Birchbox, but now you can
right.
pretty much find a subscription box for everything almost. So
Yeah, there's so many.
so what's that next phase, right? That's the challenge.
Yeah, and I think I think we're going full circle, and it to what we said earlier in the conversation, and it's this it's this blurred lines of media and
Mm,
ecom.
yep.
And
Yep.
you know uh, is the future of BattlBox? The box isn't going anywhere, don't get me wrong, but is it a more content driven? Is it membership? Is the subscription piece, is there more to it than just the box, right? Is there, people talk about memberships all the time, but we there might be a fit for us there, and it might be revolved around content. It's definitely
Yeah.
a changing landscape really quickly. And I
Yeah.
think if I think what the quote you said, I think that's accurate. The consumer is changing their buying patterns
Hmm.
and their decision making when it comes to purchases. So it's interesting for sure.
Yeah. I want to, before we run out of time here, I want to, one last topic I want to dive into, because I'm super curious. BattlBox was acquired, I guess, almost 1 year ago now, right? Or probably, is
Yeah,
it the
one
anniversary?
year ago, 12 days ago.
Amazing. Well, congratulations on your 1 year anniversary, I guess, of that.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious, because I know we have a lot of subscription brands listening. going through that process, what were some of the takeaways that, like, okay, so first of all, maybe what were some of the most important metrics that the acquirers looked at to kind of determine maybe the health of BattlBox, and what were some of the things they stood out for? Ultimately, what I'm hoping to get at is like what people listening can, what they can focus on. Like, what were key metrics that they looked at to determine BattlBox was a great company to acquire?
Yeah, Jay, it's exactly what you think that it would be, right? It's AOV, it's churn, it's LTV, all the metrics that we all talk about that are important. They
Yeah,
they they asked about them, they wanted to see them, and they asked about them 7 different ways.
yeah,
They wanted to see the data. They wanted to have a it was a 900. They pulled a bunch of customer data to run their own analysis, and not just trust the platforms.
mm-hmm.
It was a 900 megabyte file that kept the guy that was doing it kept crashing his computer. And he was screen
Jeez.
sharing, and it hurt to watch. But because it's just a big giant data file. But ultimately they pulled the data, and they did their own analysis to see, okay, is this the LTV?
Yeah,
Is this the churn percentage? Um, and it all the metrics that everybody says matter, they truly matter. So any tools or things you can do to increase that. There's obviously a plethora of best
yeah.
practices that can be
Did you
followed.
did you on your site right now? You have the four different. I forget the names of them. There's like the basic, the intermediate. You have four
Yeah,
different
four
price
tiers,
points,
right?
4 tiers. Did you have that before the acquisition, or was that introduced after? How long have you had those 4 tiers?
No, so we the cool thing about the acquisition is we've made zero changes to how the business operates.
Okay, so
Um,
that's been around for a while.
yeah, so we launched with that. It's funny. So when we
Oh,
launched, we
okay.
had the same 4 tiers we have now. The funny thing about it is that when they were created, we with 100% certainty placing a bet. The basic box, it was 25 when we launched. Um, but we were very, very, very confident that was going to be the most popular. And
Hmm.
the Pro Plus, it was 150 when we launched. Um, we were like, okay, some people might go for that. That's the Pro Plus. That's 41% of our base is in that. That's what everybody wants, which is just it was kind of mind blowing. The little bit of learnings we had at the time in 2015 when it came to subscription, using the birch boxes of the world is kind of like the pace car of learnings was, low price point is where it's at. That
Yeah,
$15 a month. Um, and we our hypothesis was 100% incorrect, and it was the high priced one.
interesting. Well, the reason I ask is what one of the metrics that is in SaaS, so like in a company like Bold, like we have recurring revenue, but it's for software, but similar concept. um, Net dollar retention is really important as a metric. And what that is when you get a user or a customer, do they become more valuable over time? So having a path where a customer is a $19 customer to start, you have, it seems like an upgrade path. It could also just be individual add-ons. Are there like monthly? I know you have a lot of one-time products people can buy, but um, how much of a did they look at that, or was that a factor?
No, surprisingly they didn't. Um,
Interesting.
which is interesting. Now we do have a path towards upgrading, and we do have data that shows that customers that come in at the lower tiers over
Yeah.
time through just a couple just stuff that we do, like we include the insert shows them also what they are. Our tier stack. So if you get the basic, you get these items, but if you get the Pro Plus, you get all the items for the basic, advanced, and Pro.
Right. Yeah.
So including the insert that shows them what they missed and a few other things. We see that through
Mm,
time the data shows that they customers do upgrade. But no, it
yeah.
wasn't it wasn't a drill down at all. And I come from the SaaS world, so it was it's something I'm cognizant of, and it wasn't discussed. It was the high level metrics, and of course,
Interesting.
like outside of that, margin, right?
Yeah.
You have
Yeah,
to have
for
you have
sure.
to have a decent margin. If
Yeah.
you have a bad margin, that just means they can only pay so much of a multiplier off even,
Yeah,
that's I guess a big difference too, right? The valuation model
totally.
for a SaaS company versus a physical product is significantly different.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Just like if you have a good enough upgrade path, you can get to a point where you actually have negative churn. Because even though you're losing
Right.
customers, your existing customers, and Shopify, they're a good example of this. I don't know if like this last quarter, if they posted negative churn, but many earnings calls, their 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 net churn is actually negative, because so even though they lose merchants, their existing merchants are either upgrading Shopify plans, or Shopify is making more off of them because of the transaction fees and other ways they make money from merchants, but their net, it was negative. So they were actually, and I was
Right.
wondering if you might be in a situation like that, because of, it seems like you have a very healthy upgrade path, which, like, I preach this all the time. And I when I saw your different options and how I was curious the strategy to move them up. Um, do you know if your net churn is negative, or
We
is that something you
we
you haven't
no
kept a?
so we look we don't have a tool right now. We have to actually just jump into the
Yeah,
data.
yeah.
So we did look prior to the acquisition. We did look at that, and we are, or we were. I would assume we still are.
That's
But we thought that would for sure be like something we could say, and they would dig in and they would look, and it
yeah.
would be a conversation. Um, but it wasn't. I mean, they were like, "Oh, that's great, that's cool," but it wasn't a dig in.
Maybe maybe because you were in such a healthy state, they maybe didn't want to highlight it. I'm
Yeah, I
wondering, you
mean,
know what I mean? Like, it's a negotiating point. If your net dollar retention is really healthy, maybe they could have paid more. I don't. I'm assuming whatever you got was fair,
yeah.
but like maybe that was a strategic thing not to dig into it because it was good.
I mean,
So
quite
why
possibly.
point that out?
Yeah, I mean, they're at the end of the day, they're
Yeah,
finance guys,
exactly.
right? So like, we're already coming to the negotiation with a hand behind our back.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Is there any
something
advice? Oh, go
go
ahead.
I was gonna say one other thing that talking about the process of if you want to be acquired, if you want that to be your next step, few things that we had to change fairly quickly. So when we decided, hey, we want to be acquired. It wasn't our original goal when we launched the company. But when we
Hmm.
decided a couple years in that we wanted to, it took us quite a while to get our house in order. And even when we thought it was in order,
Yeah,
it truly wasn't.
it's a
So,
grueling
you know,
process.
yeah, like, so you have to
Yeah,
have, at least 12 months. Your trailing 12 months need to tell the right story. You have to, obviously be at least if not necessarily if you're a SaaS company, but like for a traditional uh, physical product like
yeah,
us, you want to have some profitability, since that ultimately is going to be the baseline for a multiplier. Um, Ours was a multiplier of EBITDA, so of course that's important. But a big thing, and we weren't prepared for this because we didn't know any better. Even after we brought in our CFO and he cleaned us up and got us in, the right, plugged all the holes up in the ship, and we had a nice story and a great trailing 12 month. At the end of the day, we had never gone through a financial audit before, and we had to complete
mm,
one. We had to find a firm and complete one prior, and there were a lot of nuances, just crazy things we had never thought of that seemed crazy to us. Now they're standard, but like, you know, Shopify, we have a renewal, and Shopify tells us this much money, and within two days we have that money, and we were counting that. If it happened in October, we were counting it in October. We didn't know that we had to do deferred
right.
revenue, and we couldn't count stuff until as revenue until it actually ships. Like stuff we definitely weren't doing because we just we didn't know any better. So that was a little bit of a grueling process. The audit took probably entirely way longer than anybody thought it would.
Yeah.
So I would almost say if you're at a size where you're trying to be acquired and you've already cleaned house and you believe you're in working order, you're going to have to get an audit anyway. So it might not be a bad move to go ahead and get one and have audited financials.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. We started doing that years ago at Bold, self-auditing every year. And it's just been,
Right.
and it's, for transactions like this, but it's also just a healthy thing to do because better you do it than it could be an investor. It could be the government. It could be anything. So
yeah, it's, oh man,
Yeah.
it was a grueling process to have the third party come in and do it. And we hadn't, to your point, we hadn't been doing it ourselves. So it was quite the process.
Well, John, this has been honestly such a fun conversation. I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but I want to wrap this up at some point here. I've got a bunch of episodes of Southern Survival to go watch, so I'm going to have to let you go.
All right.
What social media platforms are you active on? Where can people follow you?
LinkedIn honestly is probably the best place, but I'm everywhere.
I'll make sure to put the links in the show notes as well.
Instagram, and Twitter are like I'll drop business stuff. Facebook I keep purely just friends.
Just for the grandmas and grandpas that are on Facebook.
Man, do you remember when it was when that wasn't the case? It's crazy.
I literally only post stuff for my mom on Facebook. That's what. Oh, she's probably going to listen to this now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jay, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. You bet.
All right. Have a good one. Bye.
That's it for another episode of Own Your Commerce. If what you've heard has helped you in any way, I'd love it if you'd leave us a review in iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. It's a new podcast and reviews really help spread the word. And if you know someone you think that might benefit from this podcast, share it with a friend. If you'd like to learn more about Bold, visit boldcommerce.com. You can view all our past episodes, and if you have a story you'd like to tell, we'd love to have you on the show. You can apply to be a guest or suggest a guest on our website as well. That's all for now, and we'll see you next week.